Well, you heard me gush about WebStorm earlier in terms of IDEs. Let's see how it handles testing. I do want to show this to you when working with a framework like Mocha. And I'm going to start out with a problem. This is WebStorm. It's beautiful. However, it requires Java. And if you're running on a Mac, oh boy, that is a big can of worms. And if you have problems with Java and the security of Java, then maybe WebStorm is not your ticket. However, a lot of people don't care. I'm one of them. And the SE6 runtime is recommended by WebStorm. It seems to work well. I haven't had any problems. Okay, well, let's open up our project inside of WebStorm. You can see I have it open here. And straight away, you can see we have a bit of a weirdness. It's not a huge weirdness, but those gray little squiggles under describe and require. What's going on here? This IDE is supposed to recognize this stuff. What's happening? Well, the problem is if we go down and you take a look at which JavaScript libraries we're using for this page, well, you can see we're missing a few. We want to specifically have Node.js globals checked here, as well as Mocha definitely typed, which I had to go and download and install, so I had syntax recognition. Well, for some people, this is worth it. You can see the difference right here. They are now italicized, which means they are keywords. That's exciting. For some people, well, it's not a big deal. For me, I don't like wrestling with IDEs, if I'm being honest. But once you get it in there, then I guess it's done. Well, now that our syntax looks right, let's go to that little drop down up there, and we're going to edit our configurations for our project. This is going to help us run Mocha. So once I click this button, I'm going to go and click the plus, and there's Mocha. I have a new runtime configuration I can create, and right now it's unnamed. Let's change that, and I think I'm going to call it all tests. Inside of here, we have our checkboxes we need to check and our text boxes we need to fill out. But basically what we're trying to do is tell the configuration where things are. Specifically, it needs to know where the test directory is. So we'll do that, and we'll tell it to include subdirectories as well. And that's that. So, well, it's not all that hard, I suppose. And now that we've done this, we have a configuration, we now have a run button. And boom, we have a test window that runs these things. And it breaks things out in a really nice way. Look at that. We have green because all of our tests passed, and it puts it in a hierarchy, which is easy to see. Lo and behold, we also have a debugger, which is amazing. And this is where having an IDE really pays off. Look at this. I can inspect all of these things, and I can take a look at the assertion library if I'd like. I can take a look at locals. I can set watches. I can do all the things that you would expect from a debugger. This right here is where all my grumbling about IDEs tends to go away, because having a debugger like this and also having a test window that works nicely, now that's really worth a lot. And this thing is less money than Sublime Text. I think that's pretty darn funny. All right, let's go and take a look at one of the key features that I really, really like about working with WebStorm's test window. So if I run all tests again, you can see that, boom, we have our output here, but we have this special little button over here in the corner, and that is the auto test toggle. So if I turn that on, that's going to run our test for us whenever the file changes. Now, if I go over here to set auto test delay, and I set that to 1 second, that makes a really interesting thing happen. Watch when I change this word and I hit save. Boom, it reruns the test. That is great in terms of a feedback loop. I think that's really, really handy. So if we go up here and I change this to a scenario, which I think, I don't know, is that proper? I don't know. Anyway, it changes and it runs. That's neat. All right, one last thing I want to show you is if I put this window into floating mode, I can just pop this over into, let's say, a second monitor if I want, and I can have all my tests go off as I write code. Here I have kind of limited real estate on my laptop, so it's a little bit difficult to see. But if I change this to, let's say, false, and I give a reason, my test will fail. And what I can do here is to try and figure out what's going on. I can click and I can see a diff. At first I can see the error itself, but then I can see a diff of what was expected and what I got. And that's pretty neat if you have a big fat output like an object output and you want to see specifically what's changed. If I want to go to where the error happened, I just click on that first link there and boom, takes me right to the line where the assertion happened. This is great if you have a ton of tests and you want to know, hey, what's failing where? And so you can just click on it and you go straight to the test. Now, if something does crash or break, and somebody committed a change that you really don't like, well, look at this. You have a Git window down below. You can take a look at the log and a graphical display right in your IDE. And that is pretty nifty, I have to say. All right, well, last thing I'll show you here is that you can use to-dos if you want, and the IDE will register that for you. It's a little bit wonky. It takes a bit to figure out how to do this. It's reading all the to-dos that are inside of my Node module, so you see a ton. But if you look in current file, you can see the one I just created, and it tells you the line and position of it. And it's pretty useful when you have a big code base and you know you have things to do. You leave yourself a little to-do note. So that's setting up testing with Mocha and WebStorm. It's a fascinating IDE, worth all of the money if you ask me. Even if you're a Visual Studio fan, working with WebStorm in addition to it, that's a pretty good idea, especially if you're working on a Node project. As you can see, there's lots of bells and whistles in WebStorm that, well, frankly, don't exist in Visual Studio.